We are on. Welcome everybody. There's Anneli. Hey Anneli. Joe is over there getting some potting mix ready for us for rooting some Mexican sunflower cuttings. And I would also like to introduce you all to Whitney, who is over here. She is one of the volunteers from FCS 405, was it? 408, from FCS 408, and she's helping us out in the garden as well. Just wanted to do a quick walkthrough. Everything is looking great. We're getting the fruit tree area ready to install these borders out of this deadwood right here that I just harvested. And we're going to be placing some perennials around the fruit trees, both edible and medicinal, to convert this area into a food forest, and also support species or biomass plants or green manure crops, which is what we're going to be talking about today. We reset this bed right here. It's a mix of spinach, lettuce, mustard, cilantro, and rows of cover crops. Let's see, we've got the Romanesco right here looking fantastic. I think it's just about time to harvest this over here. This polyculture has developed quite nicely. We are starting to get an abundance of peas. You guys remember when we planted those peas? Looking good. These are the burgundy peas. Just about time to start harvesting. Really excited for the peas. It is always such a joy to grow peas. It's the one thing I look forward to in the winter is growing sugar snap peas. I love them so much. Yeah, anyways, we're going to talk about the main subject of this video now. So, green manure. I have mentioned green manure in the past, and some of you are probably wondering, what is green manure? Why is it so great? How can it be so beneficial to your garden? And think of it as just plant-based fertilizer that you grow yourself. And you'll have certain plants that you grow to harvest green manure crops from. So the main ones that we use here are comfrey, Mexican sunflower, pigeon pea, and yarrow. So here is a Mexican sunflower plant right here that we cut back recently. You can see we cut it back pretty aggressively. You've probably seen this plant in a couple of our previous videos. And we harvested this one for green manure, and we use it to feed that bed over there. Here is a pigeon pea. This pigeon pea is waking up from the winter right now, since we're starting to come out of winter, seeing some new growth. We have a larger Mexican sunflower over here. This is one. This is what it looks like. And so this plant is under a year old. So you can just get an idea of how fast these green manure crops grow. And so all green manure is plant-based fertilizer. Think of it like that. It's fertilizer that you grow yourself. So basically, if you have good green manure systems in your garden, that is, you're growing lots of green manure and you have a steady supply of green manure available on a regular basis, you're going to be pretty self-sufficient. You're not going to be very dependent on fertilizer that you buy from the store. And not only that, plants make some of the best fertilizer because, I mean, like, what's the best thing to grow plants with if not more plants? The saying often goes that a forest grows on a fallen forest. So you can also say that a garden grows on a fallen garden. So we're going to be using all of this green material from these plants to essentially fertilize our garden. This is fertilizer that we've grown right here. So we're going to be using it on the rows of this bed right here with the broccoli. Sorry about that. So at the moment we have polyculture of broccoli, onions, lettuce, chard, and mosh. We're going to be doing peanuts here in the future. And this bed definitely could use a little bit more fertility. And this is a previous application of green manure from a cover crop, and you can see that it's decomposed. And that's the thing about green manure, when it breaks down, because once you add it to the soil through chopping and dropping, so you'll cut the green manure and then lay it on the surface of the soil, it breaks down into this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful topsoil right here. It's some of the best quality soil you'll get is by harvesting and applying green manure to your soil. And this is how things are done in nature. This is how nature fertilizes itself, because nobody is going out into the middle of a forest or middle of a grassland and applying fertilizer. Nature has figured out how to manage its own fertility. And what we're doing here by employing green manure plants is we are managing our own fertility in the way that nature does. So, yeah, in general, you're looking for plants that grow fast and that have an abundance of nutrients in their tissues. Mexican sunflower is good for this purpose. because Mexican sunflower is mycorrhizal. That is, it is very, very good at partnering with the mycorrhizal fungi in the soil to acquire nutrients. Pigeon pea over here can fix nitrogen. This one's kind of lagging behind, but we're getting some good new growth on this one. But we're going to harvest this Mexican sunflower right here, and I'll demonstrate how to do it. And this might scare some of you in terms of like how far I'm going to cut it back, but don't be alarmed. The thing about these green manure crops is they tend to be super vigorous, and they can resprout very easily after being cut. What have we got right there, Joe?
This would be potting soil to make your light focus for it.
Looks great. Let's make more and fill that up.
Okay.
So, can you get the loppers? Do you mind filming it, Nelly?
Sure.
Just showing where I'm going to make the cut.
Yeah.
So, handy dandy loppers right here.
Okay.
And I'm just going to find a nice spot down here. I want to leave a couple growing nodes. But I'm going to make a pretty extreme cut. And that's it.
Alright.
All of this is fertilizer, pretty much, except for the nice big main stem. So let's get a tote right here. That tote is in use. Do you know what ended up, where the other tote ended up with me? Oh, never mind. Joe's got one. Thank you, Joe. So yeah, this is fertilizer right here. All right, can you hand me those pruners right there, those bypass pruners?
Yep.
So basically all we need to do at this point is we're going to take the smaller side shoots and use those. I'm going to leave a couple nodes on each one, and you'll see why. So we're going to take these and just put them in this bucket right here, and this is our green manure crop. This is our harvest. In my opinion, green manure is the most important crop that you grow because it is the crop that powers your whole garden. It is your fertilizer crop. And so we don't really use store-bought fertilizers here in the wellness garden. We grow green manure. And that is something that I introduced to the wellness garden last year. And the results so far have been quite spectacular. Our soil has never been healthier.
Yep.
So grow green manure. It's going to benefit your garden a lot. This cut may seem extreme, but don't worry, the Mexican sunflower will bounce back and it'll be the same size in like a month or two. So Mexican sunflower is also very easy to propagate. And we are covering vegetative propagation next week, but I figured I would show you guys how to propagate Mexican sunflower. Because why not? Very, very easy to do. And so yeah, we just want to leave a couple nodes on each of these. So there's one green manure crop right there, one harvest. Then we have this stem left over. And so whenever we have like the mature stem of Mexican sunflower that has kind of gone, I guess, a brownish color and has those knobby bits on it, those are actually, I guess you could call infantile roots. They're undeveloped roots. So if we were to stick this in the ground, it would grow. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to make several cuttings. I think I'll take 3. 1. So we can plant 3 more Mexican sunflowers now. And we'll demonstrate how to do that. But yeah, so now we have a substantial amount of green manure from the Mexican sunflower. Mexican sunflower is very high in nitrogen and potassium. So nitrogen is going to be the main thing you're going to be getting out of growing green manure. Because of course, you know, there's going to be lots of nitrogen in these nice beautiful green leaves right here. But some green manure crops are also very good at accumulating other nutrients, and Mexican sunflower actually accumulates more potassium than it does nitrogen. So not a lot of phosphorus. Yarrow, for example, is very balanced, contains a pretty even ratio of NP and K. But you really don't need to overcomplicate things and worry about NPK that much. Just apply this to your soil. It'll break down, it'll become incorporated into the soil food web, into the organic matter fraction of soil, and then the living fraction of your soil will manage these nutrients for you and help the plants get the nutrients they need out of this. And so, since we're fertilizing plants with plants, we also have all of our trace minerals in here, which is great. So now let's take a pigeon pea. Let's head over here. I think we can take both of these. But these are our pigeon peas, and same thing. So this one right here, this one we cut last week. We cut it last Friday, and look, check this out right here. Can you zoom in, Nelly? we already have new growth right here. So in a couple months, they're going to be this size again, and we could harvest them for green manure again by cutting them all the way back. And so this one I'm going to take back about as much. Right there. And this one you don't propagate from cuttings, you propagate from seed, but look at all that beautiful plant-based fertilizer. Absolutely wonderful. I think we're going to start with this and leave the other ones up for now. You don't have to run these through a chipper or a shredder, but it helps. It definitely makes your life easier. So we're going to do that. It really pays to have a chipper shredder. You guys know this. One of my favorite sayings is don't invest in inputs you buy from a store. Invest in knowledge and in tools. And this tool costs $200. Just think about like this is your fertilizer expenditures for a garden of this size for maybe 6 months to a year in this tool. And this tool will last you for years and years and years. So it's going to pay for itself so quickly. And you can use it to shred up your green manure plants. I'm going to go get another tote. Do you have a tote available? Or say, thank you. And so not a very, oh whoops. I'm gonna watch what I'm doing. Didn't good sleep last night, so I'm a bit clumsy today, unfortunately. But you can see this $200 chipper shredder, just how powerful it is. Are we unplugged again?
Nope, you're in.
Yeah, right here it's unplugged.
Oh.
And when it fell over, it must have unplugged itself. This one is 15 amps, and it's electric. So, much better for the environment. So watch this. Just heat it up. Look at that. Didn't produce as much as I hoped it would, but it shredded it to a nice consistency. So we'll shred up the Mexican sunflower too. I'm thinking this is not going to be enough green manure, and this is why we're propagating the Mexican sunflower. We need to grow more of it. And we're going to be planting pigeon pea along that entire planter almost, so that we have a very abundant supply of it. So we're going to chip these up here. Yeah, and see all that plant material has been reduced to this. This is free fertilizer, folks, and these plants are so easy to grow and so productive. I think we should take more. What do you think?
Yeah.
I think it would be a good idea to take that Mexican sunflower because that one is shading out the beds, and we'll keep the pigeon pea for the for whatever we want to do next.
All right.
Now this Mexican sunflower is pretty nice and prolific. What's that? I'd say prolific. All right. So we're going to take this one and propagate it too. So again, don't be shy. It's okay. They can handle it. Fell right on me. It's okay. These are some of the toughest plants around. don't worry about cutting them to the ground. They will come back. And when we cut these plants to the ground, it's called coppicing. So, more fertilizer. So I, once again, am going to remove the smaller bits, and we're going to use the larger pieces to make cuttings, to propagate more of it. I'm growing several of these at home as well. 4 of them actually. I think I'm going to take my 5th one out and relocate it, but I planted a couple more the other day. It is that time of year, and these are warm season crops, so these are the most productive in the spring and summer, or summer especially. The growing season for these is really, I would say, probably about 9 months out of the year, and that's when they will grow the most actively. And if we happen to get a spell of warm weather like we recently did, they will grow. Like, a lot of this growth actually is new. So they have a pretty wide temperature range, and they are perennial. So they will keep producing this wonderful green manure year after year. And this one we can make into a cutting all by itself. And so for this bed, we're going to need a lot of fertilizer, and this is why I say we need to grow more of these, even though we already have several, because we're just going to need to produce so much green manure to feed our beds. Again, it is the most important crop, at least if you're doing regenerative gardening, which is what we're doing here. So this can be another cutting. There's one. Let's see how many we can get out of this. And you'll see what we do with it. And this is how we fertilize our beds, once again. With plants. No need to go to the store and buy things. You just grab a couple cuttings of plants like this online, plant them, and in less than a year you'll have all this green manure to feed your soil. Very, very simple, very easy to do. Gardening is certainly not rocket science. And this is how a lot of traditional farming was actually done with green manure crops, not with using fertilizer necessarily.
You mean the lopper?
And yes, manure, actual manure too, but that's why we call this green manure, because it's plant-based manure. This is too small. But this one will make a cutting. That will make a cutting. And this one we can get a couple out of actually. But you can see how fast these grow. And once again, by the time summer rolls around, if we let these grow, if we just let them grow, they'd be 15 feet tall easily.
Whoa.
No problem. See, and every time we cut them back, they're going to produce more shoots, and therefore the green manure yield is going to be per plant is going to be increasing over time until it finally peaks a couple years in, I'd say. I've seen Mexican sunflowers that are 20 feet tall, and they have so much green manure on them. Okay, another one. That one kind of got messed up, but it's okay. It'll be fine. That's a nice big thick cutting. I think some of these will take to lab school after we're able to confirm that their soil is clean. Because that's the thing about green manure plants, is if you have contaminated soil, then they will pick up the contaminants.
Oh, okay.
Because think of it this way, green manure plants accumulate minerals from the soil, as well as some of our main, as well as our macronutrients. And so if your soil has any heavy metals or anything like that in there, then they will accumulate the heavy metals too. So in that situation, I wouldn't grow green manure plants unless you're able to grow them in clean soil. But in this case, we should be all good. So now we're going to shred these up once more. And we're going to have plenty of green manure to apply to our beds. still use more, but I think that's fine for now.
Right.
You can always use more green manure. There we are. And see how much volume reduction there is? That's why you need to grow a lot of green manure. We'll leave that other pigeon pea up for now. But just goes to show, like, how much. Oh, hey, it looks like we got enough potting soil now to propagate these.
About an inch from the top, just like you said.
Perfect, that's excellent. Let's go over here and show you guys how to propagate these. Hopefully we don't need to prepare another pot, but
I'm gonna talk on the seat.
seed is fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's all that we do. Bam, done. Throw in another one. Bam, done. After this, you just wait a month. They will root and they will grow. And then you take them out, and then you replant them. Simple as that. This one needs to go in a bit. There we are. Done. Yeah, we can fit all these in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
Alright.
And most of these should take. And we'll have more to plant around the garden. And wherever we want to plant them. And there will always be more. You'll always be able to grow more of these cuttings and plant more of Mexican sunflower. Same thing with comfrey. I'll take a look at our comfrey real quick because we did propagate our comfrey. Comfrey is also very easy to propagate from cuttings. But instead of stem cuttings with comfrey, you propagate from root or crown cuttings. There we go, 7 cuttings. I took 7 the other day, so we've taken 14 cuttings so far of the Mexican sunflower. That's pretty phenomenal. So all you got to do now is keep this moist and wait about a month. That's it. So easy. And now you're growing even more fertilizer to feed your plants and feed your soil. Just like that. It's totally free. As I like to also say, you know, we use nature's technology here. And the good thing about nature's technology is that it's free. So, just gotta water this in and then we're good to go. We'll just put it in a nice shady spot and wait for the cuttings to root. So now let's talk about comfrey. Comfrey is the one that everyone likes to talk about. This is comfrey right here. And comfrey is more of a, I guess, herb. It's an herbaceous plant that sprawls out. It doesn't grow into a bushy form like pigeon pea or Mexican sunflower. So that makes it very useful for as more of like a ground cover type plant. So you can layer it as an understory plant essentially. It makes a great understory plant for even small fruit trees. That's why it's oftentimes used under fruit trees because it doesn't really get any taller than 3 feet, and that's only when it flowers. So these we actually propagated from root cuttings from our comfrey that we grew last year, and those ones will grow back too. But basically all you do is you take a section of root about that long and then you put it in soil, and that's it. Give it a few weeks and then you'll have this. Now we have all this comfrey to put under the fruit trees and around the fruit trees as well. So very, very easy to propagate. Mexican sunflower is way more productive than comfrey here. But if you happen to be in a more temperate climate, comfrey is a great option as well. So yeah, that's talking about different green manure plants. So talking about pigeon pea, which you grow from seed, the nitrogen fixer, so that one will be able to get lots of nitrogen into your soil. Very nitrogen heavy green manure. Mexican sunflower, comfrey is a bit more balanced as well. And then we have yarrow over here. So there are a couple things I like about yarrow, and I'd say yarrow is actually the most useful out of all of these in certain ways. So this right here is yarrow, and yarrow does not grow quite as fast as Mexican sunflower, but it is very balanced in terms of its NPK. Additionally, it is a medicinal plant, is native to California, and is a fantastic insectary plant. So once this thing flowers, it will attract so many beneficial insects to control pests like you won't believe. And so we're going to let this one flower, maybe prune it back a little bit because we're establishing another green manure ground cover here, New Zealand white clover. And so this one won't really get, it'll send up a flower stalk when it's entering its reproductive phase, but that flower stalk again won't get taller than 3 feet, and the plant is otherwise, this is as big as it's going to get otherwise. And you can cut this one back once again like every month or two. So another great one, and the great thing about yarrow as well is since these leaves are so finely divided, they break down so fast. So this is probably one of the fastest acting green manures there is, and that's what I like about yarrow. So we're planting yarrow alongside our perennials as a ground cover all over the place. You can also use grass as a really good green manure. And then right here you can see a cover crop. So a cover crop is an annual green manure usually. And so this is a mix of annual plants which will then chop and drop at the end of its growing cycle, usually 60 to 90 days, to feed back our soil. And so this is what we're doing with green manure. We're continuously cycling nutrients through our soil. We're cycling and cycling and cycling and cycling. And so when we cut green manure plants, usually every third cut, we'll feed it to the green manure plants so they can then continue to grow and proliferate and produce more green manure for us. Because what they're really doing is, green manure plants are doing, is they're taking nutrients that are unavailable to other plants and making them available. They're sequestering them into the organic matter fraction of soil. Once those nutrients are in plant biomass, and then once they're chopped and laid on the surface of the soil and decomposed, those nutrients are all available to other plants now. So they're essentially mining nutrients out of the environment, and they can continue to do that pretty much indefinitely because the amount of nutrients that are actually available is actually a lot higher than people would think. And at least, you don't really have to bring in import fertility as much as you would otherwise believe, essentially. So we're using these plants to mine nutrients out of the environment and then feed our vegetables and our fruit trees. So that's it. Let's apply the green manure. So you guys can all help with this part. They say about Mexican sunflower that when it's dry, or at least in general, it's like chicken manure, pound for pound. So these beds will get a big boost. So let's apply this as evenly as we can in these mulch rows. And this is the system that we use here. We apply the green manure in between our rows, and then it can decompose and feed that soil. And then the plants can then reach their roots into there and grab those nutrients after those nutrients get cycled in. So yeah, you guys can start grabbing and applying this. And the other reason why shredding these is good is because once we shred them, they can't propagate themselves. They can't root. So because if we took a big section of Mexican sunflower and we just left it in the bed, it will root. And then we won't be able to get rid of it. So we don't want to have that happen. But otherwise, as long as you chop it up into fine enough pieces, it won't root. And you can lay whole sections on the ground as long as it's dry. You can smell that Mexican sunflower. It has a very distinctive odor. Not a bad odor. But you can also use green manure plants in JLF, and we talked about JLF last week. They make very good additions to JLF. And so whatever we're not going to use in our beds, we're going to add to our JLF. Thank you. So I'm going to get this guy over here. And so then, do you mind getting the lavender mulch with me? And so then, yeah, what we want to do after is cover up the green manure. Right there. Is cover up the green manure with a brown mulch so that it doesn't become oxidized and lose its nitrogen. That'll prevent it from prevent the nitrogen from gassing off and escaping, because we don't want that to happen, because then our nitrogen is wasted. We don't want any wasted nitrogen. Okay, so we have now fertilized our vegetables with fertilizer that we grew. So now we're just going to add this stuff on top. And make sure that our plants are able to get through. And you can see, like, we haven't fertilized this bed with any store-bought fertilizers for over 6 months. It's been all green manure and all chopping and dropping the crop residue. So your base green manure is actually going to be your crop residues. So reuse your crop residues as long as they aren't completely disease ridden. So just make use of them. There's no problem with reusing your crop residues. So we've been reusing our crop residues in all of our beds, and then on top of that, we're adding green manure. And that's how we fertilize here. Occasionally, we might add some rock dust or some additional fertilizer if we're running short on green manure, but we're trying to wean ourselves off of it because it's really not necessary. And applying green manure is so much better for soil health than applying something that is nutritionally unbalanced, such as fish emulsion or rock phosphate or any of these things. And it's much more sustainable as well, because we're not relying on the industrial system to produce these fertilizers for us, which oftentimes results in destruction of the environment anyway. So at that point, you know, if we're trying to live a greener lifestyle, then we're sort of then using store-bought fertilizers is kind of counterproductive to that goal. So grow green manure instead, and the carbon footprint of your garden will likely start to become negative. You'll start sequestering carbon instead of emitting carbon, which is great. That's what we want to do. That's what we need to do. So, yeah, we're going to apply this, and then maybe we'll run the sprinklers for a little bit. And within a month or two, all this green manure will be gone. All the soil life will have eaten it up, and it'll have become incorporated into the organic matter fraction of soil. Once it's there, the microbes will be able to feed those nutrients to the plants as the plants need it. So the plants will be able to get nutrients from our soil food web on demand. And this helps us avoid creating nutritional imbalances, just using plants as fertilizer. Looking good. And so yes, also when we shred the green manure, it'll break down faster. So it'll be faster acting. This goes for all mulches. The finer the particle size, the faster they'll break down and the faster acting they'll be. Additionally, with green manure, we are adding the most important nutrient to our soils. Not N, not P, not K, but C, carbon. So we're adding tons of carbon right now. Carbon is the backbone of soil. It is what makes soil what it is. All right, let's keep applying this. There we are. And just like that, we fertilize without buying anything. Pretty incredible, huh? All right, go ahead. Anybody know what time it is? What's up? 10:04. You can cut it off early. All right. So that's it. That's a little bit about green manure. So the reason why I wanted to do this live now instead of the active growing season for a lot of these green manure plants is because now is the time to think about planting them. Now is the time to think about which ones you want to plant and where. Because March, April is our season for planting our green manures, especially Mexican sunflower and pigeon pea. So, thank you, Nelly. So, consider doing this for your garden. It'll be worth it, trust me. Don't plant these plants too close to your annual vegetables. You can grow them alongside perennial vegetables just fine, but make sure that your annual vegetables have a little bit of space. It'll work out well. It's been working out great for us. This bed right here in particular, this one over here, has not received any fertilizer for over a year. No store-bought fertilizers for about a year now. So we're only applying green manure and growing cover crops. So you can see how healthy these plants are. And we put these in the other day on Friday, but they've already grown. They've already grown because this soil is so healthy from repeated applications of green manure. And we actually applied some under here. You can see it. This is Mexican sunflower. It's already starting to break down and decompose. And within a month, these plants will get a huge boost. And so we'll be doing Jerusalem artichokes or sunchokes again here this year. And in the meantime, we're doing some leafy greens and herbs. So as I said, spinach, lettuce, cilantro, mustard, and a cover crop. These empty rows right here are for a cover crop. We're growing more green manure for this bed. And we're also going to be improving the soil because we subjected the soil to a lot of disturbance when we harvested the sunchokes. We were digging through it, and it was beautiful soil, don't get me wrong, but we want to make sure that we are sort of giving back to the soil, and we're giving the soil an opportunity to recover. And cover crops greatly help with that because they actually restructure the soil, stimulate the microbes and all the other soil food organisms, and just help repair the soil. So that's why we're intercropping with cover crops here, and it'll be really beneficial for this bed. And then we'll be able to grow sunchokes again next year. Really excited for that. So yeah, that's a bit about green manure. We'll see these grow back. Yeah, I know that was quite a severe pruning, but don't worry, these plants can take it. They can handle it, and consider growing green manure for yourself. When it comes to the spacing of these plants, I'd say 18 inches at a minimum. These ones are about 2 feet apart, and that's pretty good. Another pigeon pea right here. This one is really starting to take off. And we'll probably make the first cut on this one, the first coppice, in a couple months. So yeah, that's a bit about green manure. Join us next week, and we're going to discuss vegetative propagation. So we'll be propagating some herbs. We'll talk about fig tree cuttings and a few other things. So stay tuned for that. And see you guys later. And if you have any questions for us, don't forget to use the Ask a Master Gardener feature on our website. And stay tuned for the next live Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. All right, everybody. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you later.